Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. I'm Gary, this is Eric. We just got finished smoking the Espinosa Murcielago. Fantastic smoke. All over the place as we normally are. We talked about, is it time to amend some laws? We talked about way out of our comfort zone in cryptocurrency. And somehow we talked about the state of the production company Miramax. All this on more. We are Cedar Culture.
Kick back and relax, it's time to shoot the shit. Hanging out with the broskies, Gary and Eric. Let the ash go long and the convo stay pure. That's Cedar Culture. That's Cedar Culture. That's Cedar Culture.
Let's bundle these leaves and burn them and suck on them. You're going punch?
Dude, I thought this was well established. I'm a punch guy now. No, I can't remember.
No,
I think I may have told you when I was dabbling in punching.
No, you're.
But I've gone full punch pretty much. The one thing that I've learned that I definitely have to be careful of, but it's true with any type of cut. No, that's not really an issue. Definitely being careful not to crack the cap, but that's like, make sure that it's not too dry and things like that. And so what I'll tend to do is I'll just kind of look at a cap and make sure that I'm not, cutting off, overlapping anything, or whatever that might unravel something. But that's what's good about the punches. It's kind of dummy proof. When you're doing a V or a regular flat cut, sometimes people cut the cap off, or like they'll go too far and then it unravels. With the punch, you're going right down the middle of it, and you're not touching it all where the cap meets the rest of the stick. And since you're not messing with that at all, in my experience, I've had way better success with like cap issues and stuff since I've gone punch.
Well, maybe for.
And I like to lick it first too.
We've been doing that though. We've been doing that a little bit.
But we started doing that because we were having a lot of cap issues. Mm-hmm. It just works well. The lick with the punch, I have no cap issues. But to the point you made of going too deep, it's not like I guess what some people might picture with a punch is that you're like, I don't know, like click click, like punch jamming it in. I kind of just kiss it, and then like slowly little nudge there, and then it's in, and that's it.
Maybe I'll do the punch today in honor, since this is a stick that you.
Well, and box pressed, it's really good for because you got a nice flat target on the top.
Hey, you're nice to your first. I think every episode I've used the trusty Zycar, so.
Probably have. You always go with that. All right, so this one is, I guess it's the second episode in a row we get to do like one Eric's excited for, although this is different because you're actually as excited as I am. I've had this, you haven't. So I'm excited because I've had it and I know what I like about it, and you're excited because you've heard me talk about it for, what do you think? Did you like the experience?
Yeah, it was
easy. There's a little draw on it, right? Like it draws smooth too. I was worried about being too small.
No,
now what will
really
happen
nice.
is sometimes
And
I'll
you do
notice.
this thing? Clean too.
Just put it in normal, like you just kind of close it. And that would punch out the back. Yep.
Wow.
And so it's clean, it's easy, and the only thing is that sometimes your stick might start getting a little pluggy as you go along anyway.
Yeah.
And so it's just having one more thing in your arsenal. Sometimes if I get to that last third and it's a little pluggy, then I'll just go do a full flat cut or notch cut. I'm almost on the stick. I'm not as worried about fucking up the cap a little bit. I can be a little, devil may care kind of. Just do it and not worry about it because you're almost done anyway, and then that'll release up that little bit of plugging you're getting at the end.
What I like about it is the punch is on a couple of lighters I have, like built in the bottom.
Everything. They throw a punch on everything these days. You get a punch. I get a punch. I just bought a.
You bought an Old Navy T-shirt, you get a punch. Flip-flops, 2 punches.
I bought a Mac. It came with a free year of Punch Plus.
So Eric is excited. We got the Espinosa Murcielago or Murcielago. I've heard it said both ways.
I say Murcielago, but
I like the way that sounds better.
I don't speak Spanish. It's Spanish for bat.
For the bat. And I'll tell you, as you're lighting yours, the only Espinosa I've had so far, I have a few in my humidor, but was the La Crema. The only one I can tell you from memory that I know I've had. I'm sure I've had other Espinosas. But on the shelf, this it doesn't scream Espinosa to me. Just they're more like, their labels are classic and whatever. This
screams Trapper Keeper sticker.
Dude, I was going to say 1980s knockoff Batman decal that you'd get in like the 25-cent machine.
Or you get those puff stickers that have the hologram. That's what it is.
It's a hologram.
Hologram-ish thing on it. That whole not hologram like Tupac singing after he's dead hologram, but hologram like where you get the little rainbow color glimmering off it.
But I'll tell you what,
pops off the black.
I remember this was one
Little
that stood
tacky.
out to you at the brick and mortar that we had. You were like,
that's
well, I
what's
know
smart about
Espinosa.
it. I don't remember looking at the box there, but I did read something online about how the box is a little unique too.
We'll have to check that out.
We'll have to look at it. But the stick itself, having that holographic kind of
Jumps at you.
jumps out at you for sure.
And if you're an 80s kid like we are, I mean,
I want it on my trapper. I want the sticker on my trapper keeper.
kids today will never know the joy of a new trapper keeper.
Or the horrors of the 3-subject notebook where like 2/3 through the school year, the yellow folder part starts to break,
Divider.
and then you're losing papers, and it's just your trapper keeper's falling apart by then. There's those textbooks that
look
you
at
wrap.
that smoke pour out, dude.
Yeah, it does
I didn't
smell
know
nice.
Espinosa was owned by Drew Estate now. It's cool.
Other cigars can be pretty smoky.
Wow.
Not just Drew, but yeah. Any first thoughts on it?
Well, beautiful color. You know, it's a San Andreas Maduro wrapper, which we're Maduro guys. Oily. I mean, almost black wrapper.
San
The-
Andreas.
The black on the black stick and the hologram. I mean, it just pops. It looks
and
like
the
nostalgic
holographic,
candy.
hologram-ish thing, being the stick is so dark. So you have a black bat that's wrapped, surrounded by this hologram that then meets with the darkness of the stick. So it makes everything pop really well.
Dude, I'll tell you what. I mean, flavor off the friggin' draw. Like, I mean, some chocolate, some wood, some nut. I mean, that's like.
So the other thing too, I'll just say, real quick,
Lingering spice.
dude, it's there, but I don't think it's super spicy.
No, but at the end, like I'm getting it way after the smoke leaves my mouth.
This is the Robusto size,
Correct.
That we got, and it retails for about $8.50. So I was kind of thinking like how would you categorize that? A lot of times the sticks we smoke MSRP at about 10. So
Right.
this is just under that, but it's not like it's so far under that if like if $10 isn't an everyday smoke for you within reach, then $8.50 probably isn't either. So
Right.
I'll call this a Friday night stick, not an everyday
that.
stick.
I like that.
Not a special
Start your
occasion
weekend.
stick. It's not a wedding only stick. It's
No.
it's a Friday night stick.
That's a great categorization.
Right.
I don't know that I've heard it put any better. I'm super impressed because I think I'd like hearing some of the reviews of it. Like they almost like scare you away.
Yeah.
Like, it's it builds on you, and which now knowing that I'm
That's like-
excited on it.
You know, with these reviews, sometimes I wonder. It's like going on Yelp and they say, I don't know, that like the mild wings at TGI Fridays are too spicy. Like, I think like I always. Like the palate of the masses, I don't think isn't the palate
Right.
of us. Like we
You're
like
right.
the stuff, and so when I hear somebody say, "Oh, those wings are spicy," typically I'm like, "Oh, I want to go try it," and I don't like incredibly spicy stuff.
Right.
It's just So if somebody says a stick is spicy or bold, I'm like, okay, well I'll be the judge of that,
That's a good point.
and it's typically not.
I'm super glad I went with a more sweeter, even though it's diet, the Wawa half and half lemonade iced tea because it plays with because I'm getting
could
some
see that going
lingering
well.
spice. I actually took a page out of your book, knowing it was Espinosa, knowing there was a little bit of spice I would get out of this. You had said you did the wasabi and the green tea.
Green tea, yeah.
I had the half and half in my
Yeah.
fridge, so I was like, here we go.
I do the green, and I'm doing the green tea now. I actually had a
plays that
wasabi,
sweetness.
which is also Espinosa.
I'm gonna wait to do that on camera with you.
Yeah, and so I've had it twice now. You haven't had that one yet either, so we'll do that one maybe in a month or two. But this one, I remember the first time I smoked it, feeling like I was getting a lot of licorice. I'm not getting that a ton right now.
I could totally
but we
see
just
that with
lit it,
the spice too.
So, fun little fact. So, I was actually the first part isn't really a fact. It's just that I was watching a movie from the '90s or something like that. I forget what movie, early 2000s maybe, and I saw Harvey Weinstein's name in the title or in the credits, and it just reminded me that. And like I've noticed this time and time again too, is that you don't normally look at like the executive producer names in a movie,
Right.
but then after he goes to jail for all the whatever
Horrific.
different things he did, now you know the name. So now I feel like, dude, when you watch movies, now that I'm saying this, next time you watch like movies from the like late '90s or '90s and early 2000s, Dude, it's uncanny how much you see his name in the titles of so many movies.
And I'm bummed because wasn't he big on the Jersey Jay and Silent Bob movies? Wasn't he connected to Miramax?
Him and his brother were Miramax, and so that I was actually going to say, just interestingly enough, do you know the tie-in there and why you cannot stream Dogma anywhere?
Is that the reason?
Well, there's a tie-in, not because he owns it, but that's part of. So the thing is with this one specifically is that like Miramax movies you can still stream,
right?
And it's that I don't know the exact reason why, but Harvey and his brother decided to buy Dogma personally instead of through Miramax, and there was a reason somewhere, I forget. They decided to buy it personally, and that was before streaming was a thing. So the contract didn't have anything about streaming in it. So they distributed it was like to Lionsgate for in theaters, I think they said, and then it was Sony for video, and then but there's nothing for streaming, and now Harvey's in jail. So it's just caught in this limbo where
his brother better get his ass in gear because that's a great movie.
Well, it's a great movie, and so
I think it hits religion on the head.
Well, it does.
It's great.
And so one of the other things I read that I think may have contributed to why Harvey bought it personally is because he really wanted Kevin Smith to do a sequel. And there was something about how he was holding something over his head, and so that was probably part of it. He probably bought it personally and be like, "Hey, you ever want to see the first one, see the light of day? Do a second one." I don't know.
And Alanis Morissette's God, so.
Oh.
Spoiler alert.
It's crazy. You can't watch that movie anywhere.
It's a good point.
And they've long sold out of the DVD copies, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I've seen
eBay,
Clerks and Mallrats have made their I've seen them on the Hulu's and the Netflix and I've seen there, but I have not seen Dogma.
Mallrats I don't see anywhere either. I never looked up why.
I liked Mallrats. A lot of people were down on Mallrats. I liked Mallrats.
People were down on it?
I don't think it was it was supposed to be like the commercial success for them after Clerks.
It was definitely a box office failure. But cult-wise, it's good.
Oh, cult-wise,
they're making a sequel.
I thought they were supposed to do that a decade ago.
No, they're
Clerks.
actually doing it.
I think Clerks 3 is in talks too.
It is, yeah. I follow Kevin Smith on Instagram, and he posts little sneak peeks of the Clerks 3 script. Actually, it's been revised a few times. Mm-hmm. But Mallrats, I think, is kind of in the same place. I think Clerks 3 is going to happen before Mallrats, but it's in script and apparently happened.
Have you ever seen his question and answer thing? Kevin Smith did. He did a circuit where he would go around colleges and different sell out auditoriums and literally just take question and answers.
And was that what he was doing when he had the heart attack?
He's been doing it for almost 15 years.
He had the heart attack on stage kind of thing. Or not on stage,
right,
but
off, coming off.
The day of...
Yeah. And it's just, he talks about everything. I think he's such a great storyteller. It makes him a great director and writer. But literally, as a fan, you hear these questions that you're like, man, I always wondered that. And he'll tell you the story behind it. He'll surprise you and have Jay come out and give a story. So
that's crazy. He's able to pry Jay away from doing nothing.
Probably in jail and rehab for a while.
No. He's married with a kid straight. I don't know that he's married, but he's good. I just don't think he's working much.
I didn't mean right now, but I know he had problems in the past.
That's what sucked about the Jay and Silent Bob reboot.
Yeah.
Is that Jay has meth mouth now.
He talks weird.
But his face, it looks like he doesn't have dentures.
And he's like, even his voice sounds different.
It's like he doesn't have dentures in, even though his teeth are in. It's typical. I've seen a lot of people that have gotten caught.
Is that a thing, meth mouth?
I call it that. I don't know that that's what it's.
In the medical. in
DSM, whatever.
Or I was thinking of the medical journal.
Yeah.
You have what's known as methidius mouthius.
Yeah. No, but where they it looks like bitter beer mouth.
It really does.
Yeah.
He looks like a grandmother's mouth or an
without
old,
dentures, but there's teeth in there. I know. It's bizarre.
Real oily. Look at this thing. The oil.
Oh, it is.
The wrapper is super oily.
Oily, yeah, for sure, and definitely it's just got a nice texture to it overall. A little leathery looking in texture too, but
toothy, one might say.
Sort of. I wasn't gonna go there. It's I don't know.
Textured.
Yeah.
You could strike a match off.
It's 4D.
It's 4D. All dimensions would be.
All dimensions
pleased.
are filled with this wrapper. But I actually did have a fun fact. So the Miramax thing and all that wasn't really a fun fact. That's something that I stumbled on the other day. My fun fact is that on average, 1,000 women per month apply to work at the Moonlight Bunny Ranch.
1,000 women a month?
Yeah.
How many are on rotation?
I don't know. I forget.
Not 1,000.
A lot more than you would think, like a couple hundred.
Hundreds?
Yeah, I'm gonna say like a couple hundred maybe, but I'm kind of.
What's the like?
I forget. I googled it, but
I like when they do comparisons of stuff like that, and they go, it's harder to get into Ringling Brothers Clown College, which probably doesn't exist anymore, than Harvard, statistically, right?
Right.
So I bet if you ran the numbers, it's probably the same. Like, hey, I
Probably.
didn't get into Harvard, but I did work at the Bunny Ranch for a
probably. And
couple,
so
couple years.
the owner apparently.
Is it still that old white dude who's like in the
Something
wheelchair?
Hoff or whatever. Is he in a wheelchair? I don't remember. I haven't
my
seen
memory
him in
is.
like 20 years.
It's
on
probably also my
HBO.
memory of like a Porky's movie or something.
Yeah, like I haven't like an HBO or whatever. Probably like 20 years ago. It's probably the last time I saw him. But and he does claim to have slept with every woman that has worked there.
I don't think I've ever heard that. I also didn't like watch. I know the documentary was big like a couple years ago.
I wound up just it was one of those rabbit hole like text conversations with a friend, and then next thing you know you're googling stuff.
YouTubing
like,
for 3 hours.
Yeah, but that's pretty wild, right?
This is good, man.
Oh, this stick's
I'm
great.
enjoying this. I'm enjoying this a lot.
And
a lot of flavors that we like. Caramely, coffee, leathery.
It really is, and
robust flavors too. Not like how we're like, ooh, I get a hint of dried berry, like like I'm not even really retrohaling, and this is like
pronounced.
Boom.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it. Like it's everything I remember.
Good stick for someone who's like, I want to taste flavors, and maybe doesn't know how to go about doing that.
That's a good way to put it. Somebody, yeah, and I don't think. Do you still get a spice?
It's definitely evened off, but it's like I don't even want to. After you've eaten like a hot food, but a good tasting food, and you've drank, you've kind of cleaned your mouth up, but you still get that remnants of wow, I had something like filling and heat driven. That's what I get, but it's not like I'm not salivating, nothing like that. It's almost like a tongue memory of there was some good flavor on there.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the next one.
Yeah, I don't get any spice, but I get that it does like paint your tongue with flavor, kind of.
Ooh, paint your tongue with flavor.
It paints your tongue with flavor. I know.
So only having they call me bougie. Having only had the Espinosa Crema, and that was kind of called the gateway stick into. The smoke is very similar to the Crema. It's very creamy. It's very profound. It's very
profound.
We joked with the whole Drew Estate thing, but I mean this thing's pouring smoke, like crazy. But it doesn't have the same profile as the Crema at all. Like the same smoke feel, but I mean this thing's packed with flavor, and the Crema is a real mild, unassuming, toasty type smoke, and this one's like, you want some flavor? So I could see how that was the gateway. But if someone was like, oh, I'd love to amp it up a little bit, I'd be like, dude, if you want to amp it up, try something like this.
For sure.
I like it. It's my little commercial for if you're watching.
I was gonna say I kind of just let you go there for a second. I kind of almost zoned out. I was like, yeah, we're in the Espinosa zone. But it's awesome. That's great. And it's always now that this is like your second Espinosa stick that is making this impression on you. So I'm assuming you're gonna probably seek them out a little bit more now.
Yeah, I'm more excited for the wasabi now, which is a candela. Which
you were asking me before what I'm doing for the Super Bowl, which nothing. It's Sunday night. I don't really do a lot for the Super Bowl typically because it's Sunday night, and then being on this stupid strict diet.
Yeah,
kind of
stupid.
like,
You're doing good.
Well, it's stupid strict. Like,
stupid strict.
Stupid strict, but it's also strict.
I heard it as stupid, strict.
It's both.
Stupid, hyphen strict.
But I'm making it crazy strict, but because I want to. But given that, I think it's almost easier to just kind of pretend it's not Super Bowl Sunday than it is to lean into Super Bowl Sunday and then just not be able to eat.
I get it because I feel that way.
Avoid you, like when you're on a strict diet, it's easier to just avoid some situations.
Even though I can eat more like the fat kid on keto still, it's really tough when I open that drawer and there's Oreos and gluten-free brownies for my son and all these snacks.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'll just go for my pork rinds or cheese and pepperoni. Like, I know I can't, but
having that stuff.
It's good to show a little restraint. Like I said, as adults, like rarely we challenge ourselves. We don't like as adults. We're like, oh, we're done learning, done growing. We're good. It's good to challenge yourself and be like, yo, can I fast till noon? Can I walk 10 miles? Can I?
I do hear like some of the YouTube people and stuff that are really big proponents of fasting. I've heard them put it that way, like the challenge thing. I'm trying to remember who's one of the big guys though that I've heard. Maybe not even really big into fasting necessarily, but some not YouTube celebrity, but like actual kind of motivational speaker, like well-known person. I forget who it was, but they put it that way in the idea of how they just like to go 36 hours without eating, like a couple times a year, just to.
Yeah, some of the guys I follow are always into like once a month doing like 30, 40, 50, 60 hour fast. I don't do that, but I'm pretty religious about every day. You won't see me eating before 1 o'clock typically.
I've done like 95 hours.
Wow. On purpose, or you just forgot?
4 days. Yeah, I was going for 4 days, and I stopped like an hour shy of like when I had dinner that last night.
That's cool.
Yeah, and it was, and the interesting thing was in those 4 days, I want to say I lost about 9 pounds, and of course you would think it would all come right back, and it didn't. It actually stuck for a little bit, which was surprising.
I just like the way it's made me approach eating in a weird way. Like I don't fill my plate like I used to. Like I used to load up, the dinner plate they say is what, like 40% too big anyway? Mm-hmm. My stuff would be hanging over the edges.
Right.
So now I'm like, let me start with one. If I'm hungry, I'll have a half.
So the funny
Make sure I'm drinking a ton of water between,
The thing on eating macros, like following macro diet, the plate is not 40% too big. It's too small, and I need to put stuff on other plates. I have like multiple plates in my meals.
But you're also putting so much better quality.
That's the thing. It's
vegetables,
the quality. It's the quality, and so I wind up with just a half a full big dinner plate of like just broccoli.
Exactly.
And then like a sweet potato and ground turkey on it, and then
on cheat days you get to drink your tears. From crying.
No, that's the thing with this diet. I'm eating like 2,400 calories a day. Like that's what's interesting about it is it's not incredibly restrictive in terms of quantity of food.
Right.
It's what I would call restrictive in the types of food you eat, but honestly, it's what quote normal people. It's how they just eat.
Right.
Like responsible adults. It's just how they eat. They
how
put
do they do it?
They put half their plate vegetables, and they
how
put
do you
this.
put half a plate of broccoli on there for just no good reason?
I mean,
when Oreos exist.
Right. No, I get it, and that's why we're here talking about diets. And it's funny because I had about 7 or 8 of us or 10 of us or whatever in some group text, and we were talking about diets the other day, and one of the guys was like, "I've never he's like, "I've never dieted," and I was like, "That's sort of like now you're talking semantics. It's sure you've never dieted, but you eat the way I'm eating on a diet every day for 38 years. Right. So like, you know what I mean? Like I don't know.
You've shown restraint, like a weirdo.
So sure, don't call it a diet, call it this, call it that. Like it's just eating the way you're supposed to eat is what eating with macros is. That's how I look at it.
Does it line up? I'm just curious. Does it line up with like the government's food pyramid? Like is it the traditional like?
No, not the traditional period table in that like.
The grains.
Yeah, they show like bread as like a really good option for grains in the government diet. And I haven't looked at the food pyramid. I don't know. Does the food pyramid even still exist?
I think they call it something else. I think the triangle was too big of a concept for some people to get around. Now it's like.
Yeah, I know it's changed in some ways.
Chart.
So I don't want to speak out of line in terms of maybe they have fixed the things, but for the most part, the breakdowns in that diet, like in the food pyramid, in terms of like obviously sugars being the smallest, and
right.
I'm trying to remember. I want to say carbs were on the bottom, and yeah, when you eat macros, carbs is the biggest macronutrient you eat. Typically, that changes when you go into extreme cuts. I've seen people have to go to like they call it like poverty macros, where you're not getting a ton of carbs and or fat. Later in cuts and when you really stall and stuff like that. But the other thing is I've also seen on macros people do reverse dieting where like literally over time, and I don't know the exact criteria, like getting a coach involved is really important, like an expert, but reverse dieting where they've had success having people lose weights by increasing their calorie intake over time and not increasing the calorie output.
That's interesting.
And it's like literally, it's like scientifically like ramping your metabolism up. And again, it's like certainly not everybody could do that on a whim.
Right.
But as you go through this macros kind
and
of
as the
life,
coach learns how you react
so like
to
what
stuff.
you might do, what's interesting with macros is, that's why I say like it's tough to really call it a diet per se, because in the ideal world you eat responsibly all the time. And in macros there's sort of these 3 phases you go through, which are cutting, maintenance, or bulking. And so some people...
I've been bulking for 38
Well, yeah, some people
years.
may never bulk, like need to go through bulking phase, but you should also not be in a cut phase forever. But what's cool about it is it has that maintenance phase. So that's when you really, I imagine then, if you, let's say you did a 3-month cut and you actually get to your goal weight, the ideal scenario is that you then do maintenance for a lot of months until you've taught yourself how to eyeball normal portions.
That's actually really cool because I think that's where I'm
It
kind
really
of.
teaches you.
That's kind of where I'm stumbling in with keto. Like I have not had long walks. I have not, I mean, there's a lot of kind of stressors in my life, like not crazy stressors, but stressors where I'm like not eating probably the way I was a couple months ago either. But I found myself a couple pounds down from Christmas and like plateauing in a good way, being like, wow, I can hover around this number and be pretty damn comfortable, like getting into 40 jeans where last year I was almost in 50, jeans, you know what I'm saying? So like you said, learning, like, oh, wow, if I eat less like a pig,
Yeah.
wow, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and then with macros too, as you get good at it and you learn, you start to figure out what your normal day looks like and what your maintenance macros should look like, and then you actually get to where you can say, well, on workout days, depending on what I do, I can ramp up the carbs.
I was that way even keto with squatting. I was like, even though I'm on keto and it's a squat day, like I'm gonna have some oatmeal or I'm gonna have something because I was powerlifting especially. Like I was
powerlifting on keto's got to be pretty hard.
Yeah, until your body really switches over to really utilizing fat for energy. You feel like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like you're doing probably more damage than good.
But even when you switch over, I imagine. So I had a good friend of mine who was doing that. He was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu very regularly. I forget how many times a week, but with all private sessions. He has a lot of money, and he was full keto. And we were talking about, I was like, dude, like, how do you do? I don't know if you've ever done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class. I've only
sweated watching it.
Yeah, like I've only done a couple.
I sweated seeing a YouTube clip of it.
At work we did some workshops and had a trainer come in just for like kind of team building stuff, and
gotta be
and they're crazy in terms of physical output.
Oh, yeah.
Before you even get through the warm up, it's insane. And I said to him, I'm like, dude, how do you go through one of those sessions, with no carbs? And he was like, your body, what you said, your body adapts and yada yada and all that stuff. And he was doing it, obviously. And then one day he decided to have a banana like a half hour before his workout or whatever. And he was like, dude, he's like, I didn't realize how starved for energy I was. He's like, I felt great in that workout after a banana.
I walked
That's
on
kind
the
of what
ceiling.
you're saying with the oatmeal.
Right.
And that.
I wanted something slow digesting that was going to kind of get me through.
Yeah, that banana was probably enough to get him through the workout, but probably didn't put him off of keto because of,
the physical
all that
activity.
output.
It reminds me really like when we watch those reality shows where they're on the island for like 14 days, surviving. And like they're like, oh my God, I found a quail egg and I ate it and I feel, like I could feel my body absorbing the nutrients.
Dude, where did I hear this from? This is going
Me
way
last
back.
week.
No, this is going way back. But I saw somewhere where somebody was like stranded at sea for a while, and they had a little survival kit, which with some fishing string and stuff.
I think I heard of this too. What they drank?
No, when they were catching fish, the guy was saying he was craving the eyeballs. Like, but just craving them, like literally, like, ooh,
Well,
I
his
want
body
this
knew,
eyeball.
like, take this.
Well, and that's what it was. Like, the scientist or whatever, doctor or somebody came on, like, later in the thing I was watching, and they said, in that scenario, you're really depleted of X vitamin, and that's in the eyeball. Like, your body just knew. Isn't that weird?
That's how That's how we had to evolve. Like our bodies knew what they were doing. The story I heard, a guy was stranded at sea again, so salt water all around him, can't drink.
Not a drop to drink.
Not a drop to drink.
Captain, my captain.
So-
That's another Full House reference.
There you go.
When Uncle Jesse went back to high school, he had her like read "Oh Captain, my captain" or something like that.
You love you.
Dude, it's crazy. I don't even watch the show. Like I haven't watched it in forever.
You're watching it in your memories.
Always in my heart.
The guy drank turtle blood. He would catch sea turtles. Like he would catch a fish, have enough bait to catch a fish, have enough bait to catch a bigger fish, have whatever that looked like so that the turtle would come, catch it, kill it, and drink its blood. Like he survived that for months.
Whoa.
Yeah, can you imagine drinking blood?
Was
the
it
only
similar?
water?
Did they say like was there a vitamin in the? I imagine like.
It was just the only non-salty liquid that he could was readily available. You drink seawater, you go, you'll get salt poisoning and.
Oh, that's
go
right.
nuts.
So just as a source of.
That and
fluid.
rainwater that he could collect, I guess, in its dead shell or whatever he did.
Yeah.
I would not be good in a survival situation like that. I'd be like, I'm just going to start drinking seawater. I'll stare at the sun, drink some seawater, go out on a high note. It's been fun.
Right?
Not stressed.
It's interesting you say that because I can't imagine being in a lifeboat and not drinking this. Like when you get X number of days in and you're dehydrated.
Your body's like, drink water.
Like,
There's
how do you
1,000
not?
million bajillion gallons here. But I think once you start drinking it, like you said, with the craving the eyeballs, your body has to be like, throwing it up. Like, you can't put this in me.
Maybe. But yeah, and the biggest thing that I think about whenever you see that kind of scene in a movie is the sun. That's the biggest thing that I think about. Like, if you were in the middle of the ocean on a sun, like,
just what do you do?
Like, what do you do? Like, you just start blistering after a day. Like, you go out in the sun for a day without sunscreen, yada yada. Like, you can start getting like blisters and stuff.
Sun poisoning.
Several days. No, thank you.
Then
no,
I
I'm
heard-
good. I'd rather have a cigar. Thank you.
Oh, exactly. Then I heard a small shipping vessel goes down. Everyone on board dies. One of the guests found an air pocket, like in one of the cabins inside. So you're trapped. He's in a room, but luckily it didn't it didn't fill enough.
underwater?
The boat half sank, so it filled
half
with water up till about he had like 2 feet of room. He
Right.
found a room, and he's just floating there, hoping he's got enough oxygen, knowing you can't call for help. Like, just the mental torture. I would have wished I just drowned.
Swim out?
It was like dark, like he
In a
was so
cabin,
far.
like, yeah.
He was so dark. He tried a couple times. He got rescued.
Wait, was this a real?
yeah,
Was this real or a
yep.
movie?
Yeah, a dude gets rescued.
On like a documentary or
Yeah,
something?
it was on something like Craziest Survival. Like,
Yeah.
I can't believe I survived it. One of those shows.
Dude, when I was a little kid, we my parents' attorney for some case or whatever that they were in, the attorney was actually on an episode of Rescue 911, and there was like a big event for it. I remember we went to like some viewing party that he had. You know, we got a little banquet room.
Was he a
Yeah, Survivor.
He was a survivor. He wasn't like, oh, as a lawyer, I've
Right.
seen this happen.
No,
he survived.
He survived as a, and I
What
forget all
was
the
it?
details. I mean, I was young, but I remember it was that he survived a plane crash, a small plane crash on like a snowy mountain. That's kind of all that sticks in my head. And the one other thing that sticks in my head is where the event was held. Now, I don't know if this was a national chain back then, so like I don't know if people will know it or if it'll only like be for us to kind of laugh at. But that viewing party was held at the Ground Round.
Dude, ground round. Well, it could be regional because we had ground rounds in New York.
Okay, you did.
Pay what you weigh. Remember those days?
Now you say that, that sounds kind of familiar.
You know why I
don't
remember?
think- I was gonna say I don't think we participated. We wouldn't have participated.
No, I
in
was
that.
gonna say, nation, why I remember? Because everyone would be like, oh, 39 cents, I can have a burger, and I was like, $1.97, no, and they're like, sir, the hamburger only costs $1.25, and I was like, I owe you more than it's supposed to be, like all slunking away.
That is kind of funny though.
I think of that with my son. He's 9. He's almost like 155 pounds, man. 9.
155. Holy shit! I'm trying to think back.
5'2",
My only frame of reference.
5'3",
I'm trying to
100.
think. I want to say when I was around 12, I was about 125 pounds, and I was chunky. Like I was fat. I was like 5'6" at that age and everything. But that's crazy.
Not to cut you off, but I'm getting some really cool, like it's changing a little bit on me. I'm getting like caramely, leather, sweetness off that Maduro wrapper. Like the pepper's gone. Like the pepper that was present completely, like, not that it was heavy,
I get the
but mild
caramel,
out.
like a burnt caramel almost. I'm getting caramelized sugar.
Liking that, bud.
That's a good point. And I think I'm
Sweetness on that
We'll
wrapper.
wait for another half inch or so, but I think we might be starting to get to where I started to feel like a lot of licorice before. But let's see. Let's hold off and see. I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves.
I'm going to tell you,
Little good and plenty action.
I know we usually talk about it at the end, but I'm super impressed so far. Like this crushes the other Espinosa I had, just because it was more of a mild stick. This is like up my alley with the Maduro, the oils.
Up your alley. Almost, it's like with a rubber hose, but that doesn't work with an alley.
So I have a little fact.
Okay.
And it's something I stumbled on in my YouTube hole that I fell into a couple nights ago. So dinosaur fossils are first discovered and identified about 1840, 1841. Putting that in perspective, that's pretty much 30 years after most of the founding fathers lived. So people like George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, guys that wrote our Constitution, never knew that dinosaurs existed.
That is
Like,
pretty
we're
interesting.
not aware that like giant lizards roamed the earth.
Yeah.
And it's not that it's an amazing fact, but just you're only talking 1841. It's not terribly long ago. You're talking about 100,
Right.
200 and something years ago.
That's yeah. I mean, that's actually kind of similar to the whole like Wyatt Earp dying in like 1920 something or whatever. Yeah, like
Because you think of him, no, that had to be
I was talking
1500s.
to another friend about that the other day. Just how young the country is in perspective.
Young
Because
the
what
country
we were
as
talking
pe-
about,
as-
what we were talking about though, is that how like a lot of amendments and laws and stuff, like it's tough to keep up because of the digital age, right?
Sure.
And so if we believe that, we believe that, then we need to kind of embrace the idea potentially of going back and revisiting some things. And what he and I were talking about is, like, do we need to revisit our Constitution? Like the amendment, Second Amendment, right? That was written with certain types of guns in mind, at least 100%. For that portion of it. And then we were talking about something else, like, the idea of free speech. Like that was written far before.
When I could kill you for not agreeing with your thoughts.
Well, it was also written at a time, and the specific example he and I were talking about was, what was going on? So you hear something really weird, right, as a person, like, I'm trying to just off the cuff think of like a specific example. I don't know. You hear that Biden, I don't know, was in some weird club in college. I don't fucking know.
Right.
And for some reason, it's like weird and dirty and makes people feel weird. That one person, can go on Facebook, put a spin on it, and then it can get picked up. And next thing you know, within a couple hours, the world knows about it. The fact has changed 10 times over, and it's just an irrelevant thing that's creating all this hysteria and hype. And then, like, the equivalent of that, if you go back to when the Constitution was written, and this is the example I was giving my friend, it might be like somebody tells me this weird fact, and then I think to myself, ooh, I should go tell Gary. And then I'm like, well, then I got to get on my horse, and I got to go ride 10 miles down the road, and this and that, just to tell Gary about
He'll
this club.
find out about it at his eulogy when he
Or
dies
it won't
in
matter.
5 months, because we only live to be 20 years old.
Or it won't matter. It just doesn't matter enough to talk about.
Right. No, that's a good point. Like, what would they say? Like,
And I want to be clear, I'm not
instantaneousness
saying
of
like, oh, because of social media, like free speech should go away. I'm just saying we need to look at things in general through a different lens.
Right. Yeah. And free speech isn't free speech. Like, you're not allowed, I can't tell you, like, I can't create a riot because of
But there's interesting
fake danger.
And one of the things that's coming up is with social media is how, like, I guess it was Twitter banned Trump, and then this and that, and the question comes up of like, is that infringing on free speech? Well, I mean, it's a platform. I mean, I guess
it's a public platform.
I assume
owned
it's
by
publicly. I don't know.
Private.
I don't know. I think they're publicly traded, but even still, it's like, I don't know. They are run. It is private to an extent, in that it's not a government-owned thing.
Right.
And so, does that, like, should they have the right? Just like I have the right to say, like, look, Gary, if you're going to talk about XYZ, like, I don't want you in my house.
No, exactly.
So I don't know.
I'm a baker and I don't want to make a specific cake for a specific type of person.
But then there's a school of thought that says, well, when something gets to a certain size, even if it's private, it sort of becomes public. Like, to an extent, you could argue ADA regulations on privately owned businesses. Like, it's your privately owned business, but you have to make it accessible to people. So like, there's an argument there too that you could say, like, all right, Twitter, like, they can do, like, it's their own, they can run their business how they want, but at this point, it's a fundamental right to have access to Twitter. I'm not saying it is, but I don't know. It's interesting, and we're having a lot of new discussions that we haven't had. Now, I know you're not super big into like finance, investing, and stuff, but have you heard at all what's going on with the GameStop stuff?
So I know a little bit of it to kind of mess myself up, but I would love to kind of hear more. Like,
I'm not really educated on it. I'm actually just learning about it because I don't pay attention to a lot of
I get my
hubbub
news
normally.
from most of the late night monologues.
Right.
So.
I get it. And I'm not one to like really get into hubbub. So for me to start really researching something, like, I need to believe it matters.
The little bit I heard is they inflated the price of the stock, obviously, but
here's
someone is on the hook for that, right? Like,
no. So here's the thing. So GameStop, coincidentally, what's weird is literally a week ago.
Why GameStop?
Well, hold on. Let me explain it all to you. So coincidentally is that about a week ago, there's a GameStop near where I'm going to put my hoagie shop. Mm-hmm. And I was just coincidentally kind of saying to myself, like, damn, how is GameStop still around? So apparently a lot of people agree with that thought because a lot of professional investors shorted the stock, which, for lack of like going super in depth on something I'm not even an expert at, consider shorting it like making a bet that it's going to go down in price.
Okay.
Like, make a bet that it's going to tank. And so that makes sense because I also believed that shitty stock. And most of us would say that. Like most of us would say, yeah, wow, like a brick and mortar store that sells video games is probably irrelevant. So what
I should get my retirement out of Circuit City. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So then what happened is this is where I get really hazy, but what the origin was. But somebody or some group of people on Reddit started this sort of movement for individual investors. So not these professional like fund investors, but individual people like me and you who can have a trading app on our phone.
Right.
They started this groundswell to get individuals to go buy the stock. Now what happens when you buy the stock is the price goes through the roof in this volume.
Sure.
So you have all these professional investors who bet on the stock to lose, and now they're losing like a lot of, I don't know what it is, but given the magnitude, it could be on the order of hundreds of millions. I don't know. And so it raises this question of like, is a lay person having an app that allows them to dabble in this economy that drives things, for a lot of people in retirement funds? Like, should people have the access to effectively
manipulate,
go create and I don't know, like so we have free speech, but we also have laws in place that say you can do free speech, but you can't incite like a riot. Right. Well, like, I don't know. In this case, you have the freedom to do these things on the internet, but like, should you have the right to be able to incite what's not a physical riot, but is like essentially a virtual
economic riot?
Sort of like a virtual riot.
I pair it to like you're allowed to speak to people on the internet, but you can't solicit minors for anything inappropriate, right? Like so you're able to connect.
And so the real point I'm making though too is that I'm not saying what those people did on Reddit was wrong, because I don't even know. Were they doing it specifically to fuck people over? Were they doing it because they wanted their stock? I don't know. And I know there's a lot of laws that are around the idea of like manipulating markets. I don't know. So I don't know the motives, and I'm not saying if it should be right or wrong, but the point I was actually going to make is going back to saying how times have changed, and maybe we need to revisit things. Yeah. And this is another example of something that is just not accounted for anywhere. There's no laws for it. So it's and so now what I just heard, though, is that some major players on Wall Street just forced at least one of these individual apps for trading to literally block the trading of that stock. Wow. And so that brings in a whole new concept of class warfare, which is like, well, you as an upper class, like, how do you get to then say, you can play there and we can't? So all these new things that are coming up.
We're back to England, man. The king's telling the people what they can do.
Well, I don't know, maybe. I mean, that's one side of the argument. The other side of the argument is like, sure, but maybe that's for the better. Like maybe the court jester shouldn't have the keys to the economy. I don't know.
I get it. So my limited knowledge, and I'm not expecting you to know this answer, I'm just posing the question. How will people lose money if they don't have the stock?
In the shorting, like in the idea of shorting it?
Right. So like if I bought Campbell Soup and Campbell Soup's doing great, why am I concerned with what GameStop's doing?
So I don't know
if Campbell Soup's doing good.
So this is where it reaches my limits in terms, I don't know exactly how it happens, but I can answer that, which is when you short a stock, what you're actually doing is you're promising to buy the stock at a future lower price.
Okay.
And so if that stock keeps going up, it's never getting to that lower price. Okay. And then where I fall short is how do they physically lose cash? I'm not sure, but what I do know is that as that price goes up, it gets further from what they wanted.
Exactly.
So that's all I know.
The gap's bigger.
The gap gets bigger, but I don't know, like, physically, do they have to put money up for that?
It almost sounds like some form of insurance fraud in a weird way. Like, hey, I'm going to buy this property, but then I'm going to set it on fire and I'm going to get the insurance money.
Just the idea of shorting.
Right.
Yes, and that's a fair point. And so that's also part of the point of the people that are on the side of the Redditors. Part of their point is like, well, what these hedge fund people are doing doesn't sound like that should have been legal in the first place. Because they do physically have the power to move the market.
Sure.
Now, the theory is they're the right people to have the power to move the market because they're educated. But we know that that's not true. Like we've seen enough Wall Street movies.
They're
to know
educated in their own
right,
concerns,
like,
not ours.
Exactly. We've all seen enough Wall Street movies to know like the demographic of people playing in that world and whose interests they have at heart, and it's certainly not yours.
And
and
from
mine.
what I've learned about all those movies, they're all on drugs anyway. Those people.
Well, I actually almost just said that. I was like, well, if
The Wolf of Wall Street.
if
taught me
Wall
anything.
Street movies in the '90s taught us anything, is like they know a lot about blow.
I'll use
But
lunch
no,
for
I
it.
mean, so they're all just interesting things that we're being forced to ask ourselves and talk about, and then thank God it's not us, but some policymakers are forced to figure out.
Yeah, which
What
we
is a
always
right?
joke. We
What
always
is a
joke about
fundamental
policy.
right? I don't know.
You know, policy writers also are concerned about. You know, they're usually upper class as well, so they're concerned with themselves there too.
And we talk a lot, especially in the past year, about what is and what isn't a fundamental right of a person. You know, and arguably a right is a man-made construct anyway. So
Right.
like the only thing you don't have we have a right to things because of our Constitution, but I don't know that we're born with any rights, because if we were, then we would have them. Like if we were born with the right to health care, then we would be born not getting sick. But we
right.
get sick. So like we're not born with any of these rights. And again, like I'm just it's all man-made, and maybe it's time to go back to that document and revisit what is and what isn't a right. And
I had a thought in a conversation with a coworker about healthcare, and I was like, again, I don't pretend to know anything more than the common man. I actually know I know much less than the common man about most things. But for-profit healthcare doesn't seem like it should be a thing. Like, because that's not healthcare, it's sick care. I'm only making money
Yeah.
when you're sick.
right. That's,
Like I'm not making money when you're well. I'm not making money when you're healthy.
And the biggest thing there is, and I think when it comes to a regulatory standpoint, like if you were going to do something to fix that,
Right.
what you'd probably have to do is you'd have to somehow push the insurance companies to just start covering more preventative stuff. Like, and some of them are in some ways.
Yeah.
So like some insurance companies, I think a lot of insurance companies now will actually give you a discount if you go to the gym.
I was going to say my app,
So that
if
is
I
an
walk
example
enough, I
of
get like a $20 a month credit. Yeah,
Exactly.
moving in that right
Moving
direction.
in the right direction.
20
But you know
bucks.
what's, I completely just came full circle in my head, and so going back to why I was saying, giving some examples of why maybe it's time to revisit the Constitution. The reason why I even brought that up was because we're talking about how young the country is. And so people sometimes have this thing like, well, it's in the Constitution, like it's our thing, but dude, that thing is like not that old. And where we are as a country is like, you know, we're learning to walk right now in terms of like the humanity.
Oh, gosh.
Right? And how old other countries are. And so like, we're just learning to walk. And so to say that we shouldn't revisit the Constitution is like saying that once you're 2 years old, like your thoughts are formed. You shouldn't evolve anymore past
Right.
that. Once you're like 2 years old, you know everything you need to know. And
Yeah.
every decision you made. So when you're 2 years old, like you want to be a cowboy when you get older, like that's it. You know what I mean? Like, obviously that's silly. And so assuming that a bunch of dudes who like, you know, like hundreds of years ago
Didn't know that dinosaurs
didn't even know dinosaurs existed, you know,
Wrote some
maybe,
laws.
Maybe they didn't have all the information they needed
But
to
I
write
give them
this
credit
contract
because
at
they
the time.
allowed things like amendments. So at least the founding fathers
That's why it exists.
had the forethought to go, whoa, we don't know everything. There may be flying cars, computers, and wristwatches. They
Right.
didn't know.
Right.
But I
now,
like that they knew they didn't know.
But now we act like the amendments, are
Are it?
Well,
Well, the amendments were only because they were like, oops, we messed that up.
we messed up.
shouldn't have
We
done
didn't
that.
have all the facts at the time, or
Right.
we found holes in our document. They need to be sealed.
Right.
And we still
Or
do
something
have
new
amendments.
started, and we have to account for that. Like you said, you know, the
Internet.
fact that we're trading online, the fact that there's cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and money that lives in the computer.
Have you ever? I'm assuming you haven't like ever dabbled in cryptocurrency.
I actually, in a weird way, yes, but no. Like my buddy shared something. He's like, hey, if you do this, you can get in on something early. And I was like, well, sign me up. I don't know about it, but it sounds interesting.
So here's the funny thing with cryptocurrency is that it's all very anonymized. And when you create an account to go trade and buy virtual currency, there's no forgot my password. It doesn't exist. And so you get, it's some number of attempts. I want to say like 10 attempts.
Okay.
To your username and password. And if not, like it's gone forever. And there was,
Along with that account with whatever was in there?
Yeah. Everything's gone. And so there's, and it
I would
happens.
Be, I would be so
There's
screwed.
something like $2 billion or something like that in like real money, cryptocurrency that is unclaimed and will never
And
be
is
claimed.
that? Oh, it'll never be claimed. Because don't people quote mine for it?
They do, and that I've had.
Does that mean me trying to figure out your password? And
No,
get
no. I've had very in-depth conversations with people that do Bitcoin mining, and I still don't understand it. But when people do Bitcoin mining, they legit have like servers in their house, and they get paid to mine. So people that were hyper geeks that were in on this in the beginning and put servers in their basement, they're the type of people that have like 200 million in Bitcoin, because you get a little fraction of a Bitcoin whenever you mine it, and being part of this, and that's just a whole blockchain thing. But yeah, and then this one guy specifically, I want to say it was like $200 million or like something wild, because he got in really early and it's gone up like crazy. And so yeah, and literally but the whole article about the guy, it might not have been 200 million, but it was like 20. It was something crazy, and he was on his last attempt. Like if it was 10, I forget the number, but if there's 10 attempts, he's used 9, and if he gets it wrong one more time, and so he's just like, he goes long periods of time of like, you know how sometimes when you separate yourself from something, you remember it. So he goes like long periods of time, does like word clouds, tried like all of these different things he might have done for his password, and then comes to a conclusion of like a good guess, and then he'll go and guess it, and then loses a chance.
That's crazy. Why do you think what's the benefit of that? Because if I just do it to my thumbprint or to my face,
it's meant to not be that. It's meant to be free commerce, free trade, and so therefore not like, it can't be taxed, it can't be tied back to you kind of deal. I don't know the exact, and then
that makes sense as tax season.
And there's a lot more things. Like it's also part of like decentralizing. So there's no computer out there that knows everything about your account kind of deal, and so it's like really secure. So the idea is that like banks might actually get in on this blockchain technology, and so the whole thing is, Bitcoin is either the first or at least the first incredibly well-known use of blockchain technology, which is like using bits of different people's servers and yada yada. I don't know the details, but.
Does block refer to the blocking of the user, like of that you don't know who it is?
I don't think so. It has blockchain. I think it has to do with like just the idea that like if you go to execute a transaction, there's some number of computers it has to hit to become real, and like so it's kind of like a chain effect. I think that's my guess. Yeah, we got on topic. We are way out of our depth on it. But I just thought it was interesting.
No, it's super interesting.
Interesting in the fact that that there's people out there with like millions and millions and millions of dollars out there.
As much as the computer scares me, hearing you talk about it's like I need to kind of get a little more well versed, because it sounds like that's where things are headed. You know, like
computers.
No.
Yes.
Current currency being.
Oh no. I by no means am implying you need to learn blockchain because that's where currency's going. No, like what I'm saying is the blockchain technology, like your banks might be built on one day, but for you, nothing will change. You'll still have your username and password. You can still click forgot password. All that stuff on your bank. No, I'm just saying that the underlying technology behind blockchain that makes it like more secure and all that stuff, they're coming up with all other kinds of applications for
I remember the lady was like, "You're like 39 now, so maybe your password shouldn't be password anymore to your bank." Like,
it's funny you said that. So I went to a dermatologist yesterday, and for a couple reasons. One is, getting older, I have the pool, I'm in the sun a lot, and like I've got a couple new spots on my body that I'd never seen before.
I noticed those at our collective bath the other day.
So I wanted to get that checked out, but even more than that, I was talking to somebody not so long ago, some girl, and she was saying how she was going to the dermatologist, and she mentioned it was like for her checkup. And I was just like, what do you mean for your checkup? And she's like, yeah, like once a year, go to the dermatologist, have them look my body over for spots and yada yada. And I was like, holy shit. I was like, well, I'm almost 40. I was like, should I do that? So I just, I was like, make a dermatologist appointment. And every little spot I saw was fine.
Good for
and
you.
He said, I'm good. And he kind of said, he's like, yeah, every couple of years or something like that. If you want, come back. He's like, but more importantly, you should once a month look your whole body over so you become familiar with the spots, so you know when to go in.
Allie and I talked about that. You're more likely like your partner to notice something, because I remember like she was like, my wife was like scratching my back, and she's like, oh, that's like a new something. I was like, what do you mean a new something?
I had found the lump in Brianna's breast.
Yeah, like that's how crazy.
Yeah.
Scariest thing imaginable.
It is pretty wild. Pretty wild for sure.
How you doing on your stick?
I'm not getting the licorice out of it like I thought, or I remembered from before. But
you said you've had 2 or 3 of these now?
no, this is the second one.
Oh, it's only your second one. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, do you remember how long ago your first, early on in this? Oh, was that the? No, it was only a couple months ago. So you were.
Yeah.
You were in.
I mean,
into
we're
smoke stuff.
still, I still have been in the cigars less than a year, so it's still new. But and so things are changing so quickly. But yeah, so my palate's definitely changed since then. I definitely remember that was a different size, like a different Vitola.
That's true.
So I want to say that was a just a Toro though, so it was just like an inch longer, same width. So I imagine the blend is the same.
They make this in the Rabbito as well. Remember that size where it's completely made up to Espinosa?
The Rabbito,
It's
well,
the
that I imagine is
skinnier-
Rabito. I don't know why. I'm
Yeah.
assuming it's Spanish, so I'm going to go with Rabito. And then
It's Rabbito.
And then they
Okay?
also,
It's
I
Rabbito.
also saw it was in a Lancero. I don't know if that was limited or not, but at one point there was a release of a Lancero too.
And seeing the history of this stick, the original blend, it looks like came out in 09. They did a re-release in 15 with the new holographic, or I'm sorry, they re-released it in 15. 17, they reblended it and put the new.
Because I think the ownership changed of it.
Because is it?
So it was Espinosa and somebody else.
That was their
owned it in
original
the
company.
beginning.
And now it's
just an Espinosa cigar, and he had to reblend it and all that stuff. What I read didn't go into details of why.
I'm picking up more pepper. I'm a little bit further ahead of you. I'm getting actually more like a red chili, like a nice.
Really?
Yeah. On the finish though, not like on the smoke or even the retrohale. I'm like I feel like I had a nice hearty chili. So on a cold day, it's kind of nice.
All right. Well, I was going to wrap us up here, but now I'm curious. So now let's keep going for a little bit more. I guess we can talk about Larry King.
Yeah, I was actually going to say one of my things to bring up is unfortunately Larry King passed away. I think he was 87. He had a good run, but he's in the top 10 of famous people that have had children later in life. He had his last child when he was 66, in 2000.
Wow.
And I'm I just couldn't imagine having it. Not his first child by any means, but just having a child.
It's like Elton John did something like that too.
And I guess you talked about he's wealthy. I get that. He has the means to do it, but just the energy. Dude, I have my kids. I just couldn't. I can't.
It's funny. I know
fathom it.
somebody that is our age and having a third kid, and there's a big gap between the two and the third, and he was joking around. Somebody had said, they were dude, it's gonna be a lot of work at this age. And he was like, well, I plan on outsourcing as much of it as possible. And he was totally kidding. But, I mean, when you're talking your Elton Johns and your Larry Kings, I think they're outsourcing. I don't think Larry King was going and,
doing
playing
2 a.m.
catch,
feedings and
playing
stuff.
catch, Now I wonder, though, do you know how long, does he have, young kids still passing away?
His youngest child was born in 2000, so 20.
20. Okay, so at least they're an adult. Interesting. Funny enough, with all the stuff, Larry King stuff coming out now, did you see the one? It's kind of funny. I've always really liked his stuff, and I watched him a lot on Hulu for a while. I was really into watching. He had a Hulu show.
Yeah, when he left broadcasting,
right?
That's what he did,
With
and I
the Hulu
remember
show,
liking it. He was a
really
great
liked
interviewer.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is he was a great interviewer, and what I think his style is in part being blunt, and also in part catching you off guard, and he would get really authentic responses, and also part of being well respected. The interviewees, I think, open up to him a little bit more.
I would agree.
And so, did you see the one that's been going around a lot now with DJ Khaled?
No.
So, DJ Khaled, do you know who he is?
Yeah.
Big guy, fat guy.
Yeah.
And
sneakerhead rapper.
yeah, and so they're going through this, and you could picture how he talks to
Yeah.
Khaled. He's in a lot of commercials now too. And so
You got it, Larry King.
Larry King goes, he's asking him deep questions. They're, what are your goals? And he's like, you want to be a billionaire one day. And DJ Khaled is like, yeah, man, I'm a hustler. And so I do this and that. And Larry King's like, so what do you what inspires you? When you wake up every day, what do you think about, blah, blah. And DJ Khaled is like, well, I just do me. I don't have an agenda. I wake up and I just, I know my goals and I'm a hustler and I work towards it. And, I'm just really driven. I'm really motivated. So it's all this inspirational, upbeat stuff. And then the next thing out of Larry King's mouth is, so how did you get so fat? I think he said, how'd you gain so much weight? But how do you get there from there, And DJ Khaled is he's like, well,
I'm a hustler.
No, he's like, well, so I ate too much food. But it's funny he's saying how he's just such a great interviewer, and I think that's a big part of his style. If you're in that interview, and you're at this point you're ramped up, you're opening up, you're talking, your words are flowing as the interviewee, and then he hits you with that. It's like human nature. An authentic answer is going to come out to that. Whereas in almost any other scenario, when somebody says, "How did you get so fat?" You're gonna be like, "Fuck you."
I didn't know I was.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, any more of that spice before we wrap up here?
The chili was kind of very short-lived, but definitely like chili flake, like red pepper flake. So
Interesting.
cool. But,
maybe they hid one chili flake in there for you.
Just kind of going in and out of that leathery sweetness and spice, and really good, well-rounded.
I think what you're calling
flavors.
spice, maybe for me is is maybe what I'm just identifying personally as like licoricey. Like I don't know why, like that like tingly on the tongue. It's just not feeling. But yeah. So
that's what it
different
is.
palates.
Like it's after the smoke has left my mouth. Like now I'm getting that like I just had like some good peppers or chili. Like, like in a
It's
super
just everybody's
chili.
palate's different. So for you, it's like pepper. For me, it's like licorice. And for anybody listening or watching, somewhere in between there. But it makes sense.
And I'd love to see what other people think of it. So if you've had the Murcielago by Espinosa, shoot us a comment. Let us know what you tasted, what you liked, or if you didn't like it.
Absolutely. And as always, long ashes.
Stay smoky, everybody.
Thanks for checking out the Cedar Culture Podcast. If you'd like that episode, go ahead, tap, like, follow, subscribe, whatever it is on your platform of choice. And if you are on YouTube, hit that bell as well to be notified of new episodes. It really helps us out. We appreciate it.
And then don't forget to head over to Instagram and Facebook and follow us as well.
Do it.
Do it.